first 20 years of the new century, airplanes, automobiles, radios, and moving pictures revolutionized communications in the United States. Newspapers were in the vanguard of this revolution, feeding the nation's growing appetite for news and information. Between 1900 and 1910, over 2,600 newspapers were published in the United States, more than at any time before or since. Black newspapers sprung up to serve growing communities, from New York to the new cities of the West. In 1910 alone, over 275 black newspapers were in print, with a combined readership of over 500,000. Some, like the California Eagle in Los Angeles, had a new and radical vision of what a paper could be.
I'm on my way to heaven, don't you want to go?
The California Eagle was a dynamic force for social change for African Americans in California. First, it really recruited African Americans to Los Angeles. It told people how to get jobs. It told people how to get housing. It helped people actually settle in Los Angeles and make it a community.
But ain't no down in heaven, don't you want to go? Ain't no down in heaven, don't you want to go? Ain't no down in heaven, don't you want to go? Yes, Lord, I want to.
Charlotta Bass was born during Reconstruction in the South, in South Carolina, and lived for a few years in the East and was having health problems when she was in her 20s. A doctor recommended that she move out to California. So she landed in California, and she was looking for work, and she started selling subscriptions to the California Eagle. That was all really she knew about newspaper journalism.
Seeking to emulate his hero, Frederick Douglass, John J. Nemore founded the California Eagle in 1879. The paper was already well established when Charlotta Spears Bass arrived. Her modest appearance concealed boundless energy and uncompromising politics. Bass threw herself fiercely into her work at the Eagle and impressed Nemore with her dedication to all aspects of the newspaper business.
She wasn't one of these women who was meticulously dressed. She usually had some form of printing attire on. Her face would be smudged in black. Her hands would be grimy from setting of type.
In 1912, Nemore summoned Bass to his bedside. "I'm dying," he said, "but I don't want the Eagle to die. Will you promise to keep it alive?"
She was a reluctant convert to this job. She wasn't at all sure that she could do it, and she basically promised him just before he died that she would do the best she could. But it began a 40-year career for her as a publisher and editor and activist in the Los Angeles community.
Mrs. Bass was the leadership. There was no outstanding black man in the leadership of Los Angeles during that period. Mrs. Bass could be counted upon to spearhead any movement of the blacks here in Los Angeles.
In July 1914, when Bass heard that Thomas Dixon's novel, The Klansman, would be made into a motion picture, she immediately launched a campaign against it in the pages of the California Eagle. Birth of a Nation, directed by D.W. Griffith, depicted Reconstruction-era black legislators in hideous caricature and celebrated Ku Klux Klan violence. The mainstream press hailed Birth of a Nation as a landmark cinematic achievement. The African-American press, rallied by Charlotta Bass, reacted with outrage.
And black newspapers, from the California Eagle right there in Hollywood to newspapers all across the country, really raised the specter of how heinous this film was and how damaging it was to black communities.
We of the Eagle pioneered in an important field of social struggle. The struggle to make the film industry responsible morally for the content of its products. The struggle to lift higher artistic standards in the entertainment world. Standards reflecting a sense of social duty and propriety rather than prejudice and vainglory.